Warning, this show contains adult language, so viewer and listener discretion is advised. Welcome to another edition of Up and In It. I'm your host, Adrian Babashoff, and if you're new here, welcome as well. If you're wondering what the show is about, it's entirely dedicated to improving quality of life for both people and planet through liberation and independence, moving you from surviving to thriving and living life on your own terms. Today's episode 246, and it's how to start spin farming. I'm going to do a series of these just to see how well it goes, but this is part one. And I think that there's a lot of crap happening in the world right now. Especially here in the United States with the land ownership and stuff like that. We got big companies coming in and just buying up land. But I don't want to make this show about real estate. But it's a crazy thing. And I think a lot of people can't afford to buy land. They don't have land to farm on. And I'm here to share with you guys today how I'm in the same boat. I don't have land, but I farm off somebody else's properties. Now, you can do this with chickens, quail, gardening, large-scale farming, for like actually creating an entire business out of this, or just for the preparedness, survival kind of ways of just supplying for yourself, becoming a producer instead of a consumer, as the new preaching we have on the show. So yeah, let's get started. I kind of just want to run into how I found land, how to find land, what kind of land to look for, what to look for too, like people, what kind of people do you need to kind of stay away from, kind of information, how to read the land. So let's get into it. First one is finding land. Now, those of you who followed me, you guys know I use social media to find pretty much everything. Free doors is where I found, on Facebook, I found a free door for my greenhouse. I found a sink. I found all kinds of stuff. But land is not necessarily free, but it's free to go look for it. Go out to your Facebook groups. There's group sites, friends of fill in the blank city, friends of San Diego. You could put friends of Los Angeles, friends of Austin, Texas, whatever, and just put in there, write yourself a really decent, take some time and write it out right, and take a picture of yourself, I think, and get out there and ask people, I'm looking for land. Be kind of specific too, because sometimes you get a lot of offers. I got a shit ton of offers on my site, like 40, 50 different offers. It was wild. I had to literally mark them all down and put the names, the phone numbers, like organize it straight up like a business. I didn't even think about it, when I started out. But yeah, I lost count. I started taking pictures of the property and trying to pin stuff to it. But I took a picture of myself and I put on there, all the deal, everything that I'm looking for, things that I'm not looking for, and especially giving a little more than what you're taking. You want to use these people's property. So I put in there, for instance, I will maintain an area of your property, an agreed area. I will pay all the water that is used on the farm. Got to be specific. Not going to pay your whole water bill for your home, but we'll pay for whatever we use. We'll also give you a fresh basket of every harvest of fresh vegetables and what have yous. And that's pretty much the ticket right there. And I'm just really excited because if you wanted to support yourself as far as better, cleaner, healthier, organic foods, it's totally possible no matter where you're at. There's just tons of people who have the property and don't want to deal with it. So that's how you find land. You can do word of mouth and ask questions and things like that. But I found doing the friends of Facebook groups, whatever the cities are, that was awesome because I had tons to choose from. Now, I'm on a piece of property that's probably about 3 acres. I have about a whole entire acre of almost perfectly flat ground to farm on. And there's an entire forest behind me. So there's plenty of habitat for the wild insects and animals and stuff like that. And it's just a beautiful setting. And, make sure you have a spot that you really like. And let's get into type of land. So I mentioned that my land is flat, that I'm spin farming right now, that I'm literally borrowing. That's probably ideal in most situations. I mean, if you're container gardening, and you live in the mountains, something like that, or somewhere where it's very hilly, it's probably very difficult to find flat land. But unless you're container gardening, I think, and you can dig some sort of small terraces with a shovel, it just makes it really difficult. The flatter the land you can find, the better. But you're going to have to take into consideration, if you live in a place that rains a lot, that your garden may get flooded. So there's a lot of different land features that you kind of want to keep an eye on, especially if you're next to a large hill. Study the erosion. Look at the ground. We're going to talk about what to look for, plot inspection. Well, that's one of them. If you've got like a a gully or a hill, or some place that's literally going to collect water, look at the erosion of the land. That means it's going to come right down if we get a really big rainstorm. And especially if you're growing in the ground and you've amended that soil, your soil is going to end up in the neighbor's yard at some point. So the type of land really is, I don't want to go too crazy with that one, but it's pretty much just flat land. That's what you're looking for. Maybe something with a slight slope. But when you're doing container gardening or raised beds and things like that, sometimes it makes it very difficult because things aren't going to come out level, and you're going to have water runoff if you're doing top irrigation, even drip irrigation. If everything's slanted, there's a little bit of that's going to want to have a tendency to go down slope. So things to take in consideration there. Now I want to move on to the right people. Now this one is very important because you're farming on somebody else's land. And we're going to talk about my theory of mobility, my investment strategy, and my personal strategy for doing all this. But you want to make sure you really get a good idea of who these people are. Now, some very, very old people, maybe it's kind of rude to say, but what if they pass on? What if they pass away and you've invested a lot of money in this place, and the next thing you know, the kids come get the house and you got to leave? There's so many things that can happen, so many variables. What if there's a wonderful couple, which I've met, and everything on the outside looks great. They get in a divorce, house needs to be sold, you're asked out, you're going to have to move. So you want to kind of get a general idea right out the gate. I've told all of my prospects, I told them, I says, look, this is no Martha Stewart gardening. In fact, mine's called biodegradable container gardening. It's a method I've invented and that I'm implementing, and it's very different. My whole garden's suspended off the ground, and there's wood pallets and pipes and monkey bars, and it's crazy. There's a greenhouse there I had to reinvent to allow bees to fly in and out and things like that. So it's very different, not very conventional. And they were fine with it. And I says, there's going to be a little bit of scrap here and there. I'll try to keep everything as clean as possible, but I do have a full-time job, and I need to keep adding. So as long as you guys are cool with that. I've experienced where I've been on properties where like, hey, you got to just clean all this stuff up. I didn't know this place was going to be like a storage area. And you're kind of like, what? All these buckets and full of fertilizers and things like that. And you're kind of like, well, how about if I build a shed, and then we'll, recycled pallet shed, and we'll make it all nice. We could put everything in there. No, I don't want to start adding more houses, more structures on this place and things like that. Turned into a mess. I literally just took off. I was like, you know what? This is insane. The neighbors started complaining, I think. They were doing an Airbnb, and I think that maybe the place was, they wanted it to look Martha Stewart style, right? And not saying mine looks completely like trash, but I live in a very rich neighborhood, and these people have high standards, I guess you can say it. They're more about the aesthetics instead of the functionality, is one of the things we like to talk on the show. So make sure you kind of get a feel for them, where they're at, what's going on. Do you like to eat vegetables? Why did you choose me? Come up with a whole list of questions, and then one of the things I like are you keeping the property, long term? Are you guys looking to move? I've actually talked to people like, oh yeah, well we're thinking about selling in about 3 years or something, but that gives you plenty of time. I'm like, 3 years? Look, I'd like to do this long term, So get those things out, find out the right type of people. We all know it's very difficult to deal with people, so get that right out. The very first thing we want to do with growing our food is irrigation. So you want to inspect and find out where the irrigation, what's located around there. So most common irrigation lines are PVC. It's not very difficult, guys. All you have to do is really shut off the main water. This could be a pain in the butt if you have to shut off someone's entire water to their house, but usually like a sprinkler system or something like that already has a lever. Familiarize yourself with it, how to do this simple plumbing. Basically, you can get yourself these pipe cutter, they look like giant pliers with a blade on them. You literally can just squeeze this thing, cut a pipe, hot glue yourself, which hot glue just means it's just glue. You need to match up white PVC, schedule 40 PVC is what you want to use, the thicker kind. Get yourself some glue, read the instructions. It's all right there to tell you which kind of adhesive this sticks to. And you literally, just like a puzzle, you can get yourself a T, glue both ends, stick the pipes in them, hold them for a while, glue yourself in a little spigot, or glue yourself a pipe that goes underground, bury it probably at least a foot I prefer like 16 to 18 inches. Run that thing down to wherever the garden is to give yourself a good spigot right there. And it's really not that hard, guys. It's basically just gluing stuff together. Once you got everything glued together and you say you dug a trench or you just laid out some pipe, make sure you turn the pressure on. It'd be probably the next day. Let it sit for 24 hours and see if you have any leaks. If you got any leaks, take it apart and cut it and redo it. And always buy yourself extra parts. When you're buying like elbows and you think you need 5, buy like 8. Just have a couple on hand, you know. So yeah, it's not really that hard to do irrigation. So plot inspection. One of the things you guys are going to want to be very careful of is what's going on in these plots. So I've been trying to share with you guys a lot of episodes of how to grow food and how that your neighbor just right over the brick fucking wall could be a whole different world, a whole new world. You know, there could be Aladdin over there, like little pincher bugs on magic fucking carpets flying around. You know, you never know. What you want to do is you want to lift up a bunch of rocks, plywood, stuff that's been sitting there for a long time. Lift these things up and take a look underneath and see what's there. I live in a place where it's very dry in the summer. This is North County, San Diego, California. And with the snails and stuff like that, will actually go underneath plywood and rocks and stuff to get away from the heat and the dry sun and lay their eggs and do their thing. So underneath everything is a really good indication of what's going on. I have an infestation here where I live of pincher bugs, aka wiglet. What do they call them? Earwigs. We have roly-polies here. We have tons of lizards to balance that out. But we have a lot of slugs and also a lot of snails. And these things can get all over your garden. In some places, they're more prolific than others. So you can lift up these rocks and kind of get a general idea and see all the dead, shedded shells and stuff that these insects and whatever these what do they call? I can't remember what they call snails. Anyways, it'll probably come to me. But anyways, it gets you a general idea too of what's going on. Look for scat if you're out like in the country where I'm at. Look for. I know that there's coyotes. I know there's raccoons and skunks and things like that. My systems I've designed, I don't really have to worry about them too much. Mice and rats and things like that, they will climb up. They can devastate your garden. Microgreens, forget it. They'll eat all the seeds. There's certain birds and things like that. And like I said, if you're doing livestock and you've got coyotes and hawks and owls and stuff like that, and you're doing like quail and you're not there, forget it. You want to make sure you do a good plot inspection and check out what you've got, what you're working with. I'll leave you guys with that one, is that I've been to some plots where it was worse than others. Like there was literally thousands of slugs underneath these boards and things like that. It's an indication that maybe people were spraying stuff like that was killing the rats and mice and maybe the lizards, and that there wasn't any predators to eat the snails and stuff like that. So that was a good indication. And that's another one too. Ask the people if they come in and have Terminix or, weed, Roundup or something, and they're spraying it everywhere. You do not want to have that around your garden. All right, next and last one is my personal mobility and investment strategy and why you should even care. When you are doing this, the way I look at this is I own the best soil on the planet, but I do not own the land. There's a lot of people that couldn't wrap their heads around that when they asked me, why are you doing what you're doing and spending this type of money? My garden goes with me wherever I can. I prefer to do everything in containers. Now, this costs more money up front, but you're going to have to do... I don't really think it costs a lot of money, because by the time you look at, depending on what you're doing, if you're doing like a Curtis Stone kind of thing where you're getting a rototiller and you got gas and you got all these inputs and stuff like that, it's gonna cost you a couple $1,000s to get into something like this. To give you guys perspective, you're looking at somewhere around $10,000 if you were going to do like a full-blown garden to sell, like garden to market. If you wanted to sell it like to restaurants and stuff like that, by the time you get a free refrigerator, build yourself something, a cooler, get yourself little water hoses, shovels, rototillers, and all these kind of tilters and things like that. You're looking at quite a bit of money. Now, my garden's set up. I've invested somewhere around $15,000 to $18,000. I'd probably say at this rate now about $19,000. That's a lot of money. You don't have to do what I did, but I have enough soil and amendments and containers and things that materials to build the containers that I've invented. And I've got enough to do probably about 1,000 plants, maybe even more, probably like 1,500 plants. The thing is all mine are in 5-gallon containers. I'm able to pick these things up. So I did tell you guys that I had to leave a plot, found myself a better one. I literally just lifted my plants as they were growing, put them in an enclosed trailer, which I own for my construction business. Put those in there, and I literally relocated. I took a bunch of pallets, laid them all out on the new piece of property, got myself some PVC conduit, made myself a quick little hoop house, bought myself some bird netting. I think it was about 25 by 50 feet. I just laid that over the top, buried each end, hammered in some posts in the ground, I guess beforehand, some smaller diameter pipe, and just literally bent the PVC, stuck them in there, made a hoop house within like an hour. Everything was done. Laid a bunch of pallets down, brought all my plants just from one side of the city to the other, laid up some new irrigation. All of my drip irrigation pipes, you literally just pull them out of the hoses and literally snap them back into a new one, which costs you maybe about $10, for like 100 feet of drip irrigation, black half-inch tubing. I know that's probably a lot of information for you guys, especially you guys, those listening to the podcast. But yeah, I was able to transfer my stuff with me, every single bit of it while it was growing. So that's my investment strategy. They call it digital sharecropping, where you're building your website or your brand or something on somebody else's platform, right? Like YouTube and stuff like that. And then guess what? YouTube says one day, hey, you're fired. We don't want you anymore. You just lost all your stuff. This is the same thing if you're on someone's property and you're actually developing the soil. That's what I don't like about Curtis Stone's method, not Curtis Stone, but just the spin farm method in the ground, is that you're just developing this wonderful lush land, and you're spending money and time and all this into it. And then next thing you know, you get kicked out and you just develop the land for them and you get nothing for it. So that's why I think it's smarter to invest into potting soils, familiarize yourself with it. The other thing that you would look at is, you would say that what I did was expensive, but when I look at the time, it's too much details to actually explain, and we're already out past our 15 minutes allotment here. But the time and effort that you have to put, what I'm looking at is I'm able to run my construction business and only have to show up on Fridays, once a week, to my spin farm operations. Barely any weeding, water's all automated. So compared to somebody who's doing an in-ground spin farm session where they have to be there every single day, 8 to 10, 11, 12 hours a day, I'm only having to show up once. And don't get me wrong, it's not like everything's perfect. I do get problems, but kind of weighing those things out. Now, I'm in a financial area where I'm able to invest that way. Maybe you are not. You don't have to do exactly what it is I'm saying here, but utilize all the information I gave you. The biggest one, as I said, is I don't own a home. I don't own land, but I own the soil, and the soil goes with me wherever I can. I think that's a big philosophy in life as far as how to invest, how to basically live your life. How to spirituality, everything. Look, I don't own all the stuff that everybody else owns, but I own the best soil. And my stuff, my nutrients and my sustenance goes with me everywhere I go. I'm completely mobile. I live tiny house. I live in a full-time travel trailer. I preach about that too. I want to talk about some more about that later on next week. But yeah, things get bad. Guess what this guy does? Boom, I'm out. My backpack goes on the back of my house, goes on the back of my truck, and I'm off somewhere else. I love the feeling. And yeah, guys, that's the show. I'm blabbering off too much now, but if you guys like this show, and only if you like it, please help me to review this show. I need reviews to get it off the ground. Give me a like, a thumbs up, middle finger, a thumbs down, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff there. Help me, guys, to get this on the show so I can, in the future, the goal is I want to do like hour and a half long shows. I want to just really get deep into each subject matter for you guys. So yeah, guys, it's Up and In It. You guys can in the description below, there's Up and In It show at gmail.com. You guys can message me direct. There's upandinit.com as the website's finally up. You guys can actually leave me a phone call, a message on there, and I'll put you on the show. So guys, Up and In It show, Up and In It, you can find it on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere where they'll allow me to post this foul mouth show. And as I always say, go out there and have yourself a near life experience. Don't lose your muchness. Carry on the fire. And hume it up, my friends.